I'm George Cheedy. We're on location downtown at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. This is the next Atlanta. You know, for all the success stories told across the world, Atlanta still leads the nation when it comes to income inequality. There are serious concerns this is a problem that's not going away. And all you have to do is look at where you live and how much it costs. It's not getting cheaper. Affordable housing, the expected eviction crisis, gentrification. We have to talk about it on the next Atlanta. I'm George Cheedy, this is the next Atlanta. And I'm here with Edward McIver. Edward is looking for housing in Atlanta, and he has an interesting story to tell about it. Edward, I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much for sitting with me.
Thanks for having me, George.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a native Atlantan. I grew up here and have lived here most of my adult life. Moved away a couple of times, but always moved back. Recently, I lost my vision, and it's gotten acutely worse the last two and a half years. And to the extent that I am blind in my right eye now and have very compromised vision in my remaining eye, in my field of vision in my remaining eye. And so it makes it very, very hard to see, to navigate, to get around.
You recently lost your housing. Tell us how that happened, because that's really not supposed to be happening right now.
Well, the apartment complex that I was living in was purchased about a year ago, this past summer, it was already owned by a company that was based outside of Georgia, and they sold it to another company also based outside of Georgia. And my rent went up from $605 a month to $1,065 a month to $955 a month for the same unit. And I don't receive that much in disability payments, so I was unable to accommodate the rental increase. So my lease was not going to be renewed, and it was going to be terminated at the end of my lease.
So you're looking for housing right now.
Yes.
Tell me, what's that search been like for you?
It's been difficult because the agency, when I was still housed, still living in my apartment complex, before my lease was terminated, every agency that I contacted had said that because I was considered housed, they could not assist me. And I would have to become homeless in order for them to assist me. So I became homeless in order to get the assistance. Now that I'm homeless, the assistance that they're giving me is less than, it's not adequate to my needs, because I am severely visually impaired. I'm blind in my right eye, and my vision is severely compromised in my left. I'm missing chunks out of my field of vision, and it's like looking through a perpetual fog machine smeared with Vaseline out of my left. So I can no longer read my emails or text messages. So any information that's sent to me has to be sent to a third party somewhere else, and then they will try to work with it or read it back to me. And the agency that I did find to assist me here recently, they sent me a list of properties to look at, and the listing does not have phone numbers on it. So the person that's assisting me has to look at each one on Google individually and get a contact number, and then or ascertain whether or not they are still in business, because some of these complexes have gone out of business since this list of apartments was created. So it's, the list is out of date. And then on top of that, most of these places are out of my price range because rent has gone up.
How much are people asking for rent right now?
The average asking price for rent for a one bedroom right now is about $1,000 on the low end, and kind of goes up from there. I don't receive that much in disability payments from Social Security, so there's no way that I could afford that. And I'm on the, I finally have gotten on the wait list for income-based housing for City of Atlanta, Fulton County, and City of Decatur, DeKalb County. but I had no idea how long I will be on those wait lists until I actually receive notice that here's a voucher for you, begin your search for an apartment, and you have this number of days before your voucher is no longer valid.
Assume the mayor, the governor, the president is watching this show. What would you tell them to change so that this doesn't happen to you anymore or other people?
I would say, for one thing, to put people with physical disabilities at least on the same par as unwed mothers, people who have been recently released from correctional facilities, people suffering from mental illness, and so that we can all have equal access to housing vouchers. Because for me, one thing that I've found is that those people have access to housing vouchers a lot faster than someone with a physical disability does. And also, there is no social network here that I've seen in the state of Georgia, let alone the metro area, that accommodates anyone with physical disabilities. There was on their website an agency with DFACS called the Aged, Blind, and Disabled. But when I called DFACS in DeKalb County, where I was living at the time, the receptionist said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, it's a department in your agency." And she goes, "It is?" I'm like, "That's what it says on your website." And so she proceeded to give me a couple of phone numbers to voicemail boxes that were full and could not accept messages, and ones that took messages but no one called me back. And this was before the pandemic. Now, no agencies are open anymore. Everyone's working from home, so if you go to these facilities, all you're going to meet is a security guard telling you to go home because no one is there. So we need some way to connect people with the need for housing to someone who can actually understand and address that need and try to meet it.
Edward, I'm deeply grateful for you. I'm glad that we've been able to talk, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you get the help that you need.
I appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
I'm George Cheedy. This is The Next Atlanta. I'm here with Leila Priecha. Leila is an expert in affordable housing issues in Gwinnett County. Please tell us what you do.
Thank you for having me, George. I'm the Executive Director for Lawrenceville Housing Authority and our nonprofit development organization, Gwinnett Housing Corporation. So we basically build and manage affordable housing throughout Gwinnett County. We've also been involved in several initiatives like Live Norcross, which is a Georgia initiative for community housing, and also we were co-founders of the Lawrenceville Response Center in Lawrenceville.
If you're looking for affordable housing in Gwinnett County, what does that search for regular folks look like?
We have been facing affordable housing crisis in Gwinnett County for quite some time now. And this is across the entire housing spectrum, from apartments, rental of single family homes, to basically purchasing your first home, as a first-time home buyer. And right now, the situation is compounded, obviously, with COVID-19. The prices in Gwinnett County have been rising steadily. For example, it is very hard for those first-time home buyers to break into the market without some assistance, and that is the ultimate American dream, is to be a homeowner. Just in the last 5 years, since 2015, the median sales price in Gwinnett County jumped 48%. So we have a good segment of our population that is basically unable to get into the housing market. And the rental rates have been also growing steadily. Gwinnett County leads the region in median rents. It is higher than Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, Clayton, and even City of Atlanta.
What's the median rent in Gwinnett right now?
A little over $1,200.
If you can't afford to live in Gwinnett, what are people doing?
They have to follow their jobs. And, like most of the suburbs, Gwinnett has disproportionately higher number of prevalence of low wage jobs, service, retail industries, home health care. And people do need housing, so they eventually obtain housing, but the cost burden is really, really high. In fact, half of the renters in Gwinnett County are considered cost burdened. And what that means is that regardless of their income, they are paying more than 30% of their income towards housing costs. And what does that mean? I think this needs to be taken seriously by our leadership, because affordable housing is just a very important component of economic development. The more you spend on housing, the less discretionary income you have to spend in the local community, patronizing local businesses. And eventually, economy does stagnate when there's no money circulating in the economy.
What's the eviction threat in Gwinnett look like?
In Gwinnett County, the problem has been, actually the evictions have been comparable to other counties, even somewhat lower. However, the response rate or answer rate in Gwinnett County has been extremely low, 16%. That means that only 16% of the households against whom landlord has filed for eviction have answered. And that means if they didn't answer, they get automatically or default judgment or eviction. And why is that problematic? Obviously, we could be easily facing a large number of people losing housing and ending up in the streets or extended stays.
What responsibilities does Gwinnett as a government, as a polity, have in order to keep this from happening?
Gwinnett County has taken some steps, really important steps. There's $16 million that was received in CARES Act funding to address the immediate housing concern and for homeless prevention. I know that one of the organizations has partnered with the magistrate court. They're going to be working with a lot of the evictions. I believe their goal is to work with the apartments for about 400 eviction files to make sure that they get caught up with the arrears. However, I'm just worried that is not enough, especially with the second wave of COVID-19. I do believe that the service and retail industry is going to be affected again. And of course, those are the most vulnerable populations. My worry mostly is for those that are stuck in the extended stays. They are literally a day away from literal homelessness, whereas people in the apartments at least have their, the due process that they're entitled to, and it buys them some time until the unemployment benefits become available. But the families in extended stays, despite the fact that it is illegal to just lock them out, they are really vulnerable. Interestingly, Gwinnett County has highest concentration of extended stay rooms in the country.
You've done a lot of work on helping people who are staying in an extended stay because they can't find anywhere else find actual housing. Just take a moment and explain to people who's living in an extended stay and what is that like and why are they doing that?
Being in the housing industry for 15 years, the federal programs have not really kept up with the changes, and that is basically suburbanization of poverty. In 2015 was the year that suburbs became home to more poor people than urban centers and rural areas. However, the funding has not followed that shift. So homeless point-in-time counts, for example, do not cover people that are precariously housed in Gwinnett County or homeless. In Atlanta, you can walk into a shelter and you can count 100 people. In Gwinnett County, you have to actually search for them. And so we said, you know what, we're not gonna worry about the HUD definition of homelessness because those that are in the extended stay, unless they are funded by a nonprofit, they're not considered homeless. Even though our research has shown that over half of them do go in and out of literal homelessness.
How many people are we talking about?
Well, our study in Norcross showed that 84% of the respondents use extended stays as their primary place of residence.
If you could grab everybody in government and put them in a room and say, there's one thing you need to do right now.
Funding is always an issue. And I still think there's, I think there's bipartisan reluctance to affordable housing. So we really need to expand on that conversation. We also need to look for unique sources of funding for affordable housing. Most of the funding that we right now use is based on annual appropriations. So, for example, home funds that we receive from Housing and Urban Development are in the chopping block every year. We need steady streams of revenue to develop more quality affordable housing in high opportunity areas.
Layla, I'm incredibly grateful. I'm glad that you were here. This is what we needed to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm George Cheedy. This is The Next Atlanta. I'm with Aaron Goldman. Aaron is the volunteer board chair for Open Doors and a co-owner of Perennial Properties. Aaron, I'm grateful for you to be here. Can you tell us just a little bit about Perennial Properties and what you've been doing with Open Doors?
Sure. Perennial Properties is an Atlanta-based property development management company where we build and own apartments throughout the in-town areas. We got involved in homelessness in our nonprofit endeavors in the last crash. And we wanted to connect nonprofits who serve homeless consumers better to existing affordable housing. And since that started, Open Doors has now housed 8,000 formerly homeless Atlantans.
So one of the things I'm trying to get at is how, as we're talking about an eviction crisis that's driven by the pandemic, there was a lot going on before the pandemic ever began. How did we get here?
So Atlanta became a very, very attractive city, particularly after the Olympics. Corporate relocations have been strong for Atlanta. Its economic performance has been strong. That's brought more companies, more employees, more people needing housing, upward pressure on housing prices because all of those people need to be housed. And the ability and cost of getting new housing built to meet that demand has not kept up. So that drives rental prices up higher than wages, and that creates cost burden for people who have to spend more than 30% of their income on housing. And that's where, most experts say you want to peg your housing to income ratios.
So people have been looking at this problem for a while in Atlanta. There are people working on it. Like, you're one of them. Like, what does that work look like? What are the big conclusions that people are drawing about what needs to change?
Well, I'll talk about one specific venue where people have come together. It's called House ATL, and everyone should go to the House ATL website. They put forth an 89-page document of recommendations, really to coincide with Mayor Bottom's platform, focusing on affordable housing, making housing that's affordable easier to get permitted, easier to build, lower cost to build, finding ways to make people more competitive to purchase apartment complexes, and with a strategy that keeps rents affordable.
How serious would you say the eviction threat is right now in Atlanta?
Oh, it's as high a threat as we could ever imagine at the moment. It was such a problem before the pandemic that the top thought leaders were getting together to find eviction prevention strategies to help people stay in their homes. And so what COVID has done is just accelerated that work to say, we need emergency solutions. Right now, as we speak, if you're a City of Atlanta resident, you could go to the United Way website, 211, or call Star C, that's Margie Stagmeyer's incredible nonprofit. They have access to money for City of Atlanta residents who are at 80% of adjusted median income or below. So that's like, $40,000 income or below. You are eligible for up to $5,000 of eviction relief that you can get straight with your landlord.
You can go to the United Way if you are at risk of eviction.
That's right.
And they'll connect you with as much as $5,000.
That's correct.
How much money is there out there to manage this?
Well, so when you add CARES Act dollars that came from the first CARES Act and money that's in the counties and money that's in the state, there's quite a bit. It's being handled by each county, each municipality differently. People working together on a program, some of the same people that worked on House ATL are working on a program called SOAR, which is Save Our Atlanta Region Residents. And it's an attempt to get tens of millions of dollars together to combine with hundreds of millions of dollars of federal CARES. We've been waiting for and expecting another COVID relief act. Everything we're told says there's going to be a lot of rent relief involved in that. And so tying the philanthropic and the federal dollars and the state's evidence and interest in getting involved as well. Some really good people working at the State Department of Community Affairs. Bringing this all together is a Herculean task, but some people I'm really impressed with are working on it every day.
What do you think the role is for private industry, private landlords, apartment managers? What should people who are in a position to help do? Like, what are the things that somebody who's watching this should do in order to help prevent this eviction crisis from becoming a catastrophe?
People concerned about the community who want to help should go to the United Way and go to the Community Foundation of Atlanta, and they are both receiving funds to help people stay in their homes. So you can donate. It doesn't matter how little, it all matters. That's number one. Number two is the landlord community has worked really, really hard to keep their community stable. They do not want to put, a third of their residents out on the street and have to refill them with other residents who have the same challenges and issues as the ones they put out, pay all those marketing costs, pay all those eviction costs, pay all those, refurbish the apartments after they've been damaged. They want to keep their community stable. So they're on the same side of this. And what people don't really understand is they think about those big gated apartment communities as where this problem is. 55% of the renters in the metro area live in rented single family homes or 2 to 4 plexes. Okay, these assets are usually owned by a family. It's their only asset, their only major asset. If they own a 3-unit building and 2 people can't pay, they're going to lose their asset to foreclosure. There's pain on both sides that has to come together to work together. Both of those landlords and tenants should get together, get in touch with the United Way, get in touch with Star C, get in touch with the Community Foundation, and there's capital available to keep these people stably housed, which is, nothing could be more important when we're facing a virus.
Aaron, I'm deeply grateful. This is exactly what we needed to hear. Despite an evictions moratorium established by the Centers for Disease Control, people are still plainly losing their housing. The evictions crisis didn't begin with this pandemic, and it's unlikely to end when the pandemic ends. There's responsibility outside of the city of Atlanta that has to be addressed. We live in a region with 5 million people in it. Only 500,000 of them live in the actual city. All of this huge problem cannot be laid at the feet of this one municipality. This is a regional problem, and it's a long-term problem, and it's going to require regional solutions and long-term solutions. We've given you a lot to think about and some resources to use. I invite you to watch this episode again, and each of the previous thought-provoking episodes of The Next Atlanta. Just log on to fox5atlanta.com. Go to the shows section at the bottom of the page and click on The Next Atlanta. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next month for the next episode of The Next Atlanta.